Your bodies not only change completely every 7 years, for example, they change constantly with each breath. Within the flesh, atoms and molecules constantly die and are replaced. The hormones are in a constant state of motion and alteration. Electromagnetic properties of skin and cell continually leap and change, and even reverse themselves. The physical matter that composed your body a moment ago is different in important ways from the matter that forms your body in this instant. If you perceived the constant change within your body with as much persistence as you attend to its seemingly permanent nature, then you would be amazed that you ever considered the body as one more or less constant, more or less cohesive entity. Even subjectively, you focus upon and indeed manufacture the idea of a relatively stable, relatively permanent, conscious self. You stress those ideas and thoughts and attitudes that you recall from past experience as your own, completely ignoring those that once were characteristic and now are vanished, ignoring the fact also that you cannot hold thought. The thought of a moment before, in your terms, vanishes away. You try to maintain a constant, relatively permanent physical and subjective self in order to maintain a relatively constant, relatively permanent environment. So you are always in a position of ignoring such change. Those that you refuse to acknowledge are precisely those that would give you a much better understanding of the true nature of reality, individual subjectivity, and the physical environment that seems to surround you. What happens to a thought when it leaves your conscious mind? It does not simply disappear. You can learn to follow it, but you are usually frightened by turning your attention away from its intense focus in three-dimensional existence. Therefore, it seems that the thought disappears. It seems also that your subjectivity has a mysterious, unknown quality about it, and that even your mental life has a sort of insidious dropping-off point, a subjective cliff over which thoughts and memories fall, to disappear into nothingness. Therefore, to protect yourself, to protect your subjectivity from drifting, you erect various psychological barriers at what you suppose to be the danger points. Instead, you see, you can follow these thoughts and emotions simply by realizing that your own reality continues in another direction, beside the one with which you mainly identify. For these thoughts and emotions that have left your conscious mind will lead you into other environments. These subjective openings through which thoughts seem to disappear are in fact like psychic warps, connecting the self that you know with other universes of experience, realities where symbols come to life and thoughts are not denied their potential. There is communication between these other realities and your own in your dream states, and a constant interaction between both systems. If there is any point where your own consciousness seems to elude you or escape you, or if there is any point where your consciousness seems to end, then these are the points where you have yourselves set up psychological and psychic barriers, and these are precisely those areas that you should explore. Otherwise, you feel as if your consciousness is enclosed within your skull, immobile and constricted, and every lost thought or forgotten memory, at least symbolically, seems like a small death. And such is not the case. Now I'm going to have a little interval here while I go to the next chapter, which is chapter 4. And it's called Reincarnational Dramas. Your own environment includes far more than you may have supposed. Earlier, I referred to your environment in terms of the daily physical existence and surroundings with which you are currently connected. In actuality, you are aware of very little of your larger, more extensive environment. Consider your present self as an actor in a play, hardly a new analogy, but a suitable one. The scene is set in the 20th century. You create the props, the settings, the themes. In fact, you write, produce, and act in the entire production, you and every other individual who takes part. You are so focused in your roles, however, so intrigued by the reality that you have created, so entranced by the problems, challenges, hopes, and sorrows of your particular roles, that you have forgotten they are of your own creation. This intensely moving drama, with all its joys and tragedies, can be compared with your present life, your present environment, both individually and in mass. But there are other plays going on simultaneously in which you also have a part to play. These have their own scenery, their own props. They take place in different periods of time. One may be called Life in the 12th century A.D. One may be called Life in the 18th century or in 500 B.C. or in A.D. 3000. You also create these plays and act in them. These settings also represent your environment, the environment that surrounds your entire personality. I am speaking of the portion of you who is taking part in this particular period piece, however. And that particular portion of your entire personality is so focused within this drama that you are not aware of the others in which you also play a role. You do not understand your own multidimensional reality. Therefore, it seems strange or unbelievable when I tell you that you live many existences at one time. It is difficult for you to imagine being in two places at once, much less in two or more times or centuries. Now, stated simply, time is not a series of moments. The words that you speak, the acts that you perform, appear to take place in time as a chair or table appears to take up space. These appearances, however, are a part of the complicated props that you have set up beforehand, and within the play you must accept these as real. 4 o'clock in the afternoon is a very handy reference. You can say to a friend, I will meet you at 4 o'clock at the corner, or at a restaurant for a drink or a chat or a meal, and your friend will know precisely where and when he will find you. This will happen despite the fact that 4 o'clock in the afternoon has no basic meaning, but is an agreed-upon designation, a gentleman's agreement, if you prefer. If you attend the theater at 9 o'clock in the afternoon, in the evening, but the actions of the play take place within the morning hours, and the actors are shown eating breakfast, you accept the time as given within the theater's play. You also pretend that it is morning. Each of you are now involved in a much larger production in which you all agree on certain basic assumptions that serve as a framework within which the play can occur. The assumptions are that time is a series of moments one after another, that an objective world exists quite independently of your own creation and perception of it, that you are bound within the physical bodies that you have donned, and that you are limited by time and space. Other assumptions accepted for the same reason include the ideal that all perception comes through your physical senses. In other words, that all information comes from without, and that no information can come from within. You therefore are forced to focus intensely upon the actions of the play. Now these various plays, these creative period pieces represent what you would call reincarnational lives. They all exist basically at one time. Those who are still involved in these highly complicated passion play seminars called reincarnational existences find it difficult to see beyond them. Some, resting between productions, as it were, try to communicate with those who are still taking part, but they themselves are merely in the wings, so to speak,